these spin-offs and this kind of era of The Walking Dead post the original series could have been better, right? Like, yes, okay, now we have an end game in sight with Daryl Dixon ending with season 4, and some of us are kind of consider this as good news, right? That this we have an end game, we have an end goal in sight, yet this could have been something that lasted for years, right? Like, this could have been, in theory at least, right? It could have been something that was really intriguing and kept fans invested. But just the way that these spinoffs have been handled have been pretty disappointing. I was a pretty big fan of Dead City Season 1. I think a bigger fan than most. Daryl Dixon Season 1 was pretty good. Again, maybe not, as big of a fan as some other people, but a pretty good season. And then season 2 of both shows to me, were pretty disappointing, especially Daryl Dixon season 2. That was very, very disappointing for that season. And then, of course, The Ones Who Live had some great moments. The first episode was really, really great. And then the ending, of course, let us all down and really was pretty disappointing, actually, considering the expectations, right? So it's just the way that they've decided to go with these spin-offs that I think has really hurt it. And again, the fans who are still watching these spin-offs are clearly hardcore Walking Dead fans, are invested. And I think you've even lost of many of them now because of the way that they've handled these spin-offs. So to me, this was kind of a mishandling, really, of this kind of post, original series era of these spin-offs. And that's kind of what we're seeing now. Daryl Dixon ending with season 4, this end game in sight. Yeah, maybe that's for the best, right? Like, maybe that is for the best, and maybe you do a reunion series or something, or a new original concept. To me, the biggest thing is that it makes sense. It's something that is the logical next step for this universe or for these characters. But the way these spin-offs were made, they didn't have that in mind. It was, what would be cool, and I talked about this on the channel before, but what would be cool? Okay, let's see Negan and Maggie together in New York City, right? What would be cool? Daryl Dixon somehow ends up in France, and then Carol joins him there, and then it's Carol and Daryl, right? What would be cool? Seeing Michonne and Rick, get back together, right? And that one, though, to be fair, it's kind of both in that one, right? Like, to me, that was the logical kind of next step for their story. Obviously, we wanted to see how that ended, how they found each other, how they got reunited. But it was also, the fact that they made it into the series after the fact and kind of built it all up, which was kind of felt a little cheap, right, in that way, where, again, that whole thing started as a trilogy of movies that we were promised, right? So anyways, especially with Dead City and Daryl Dixon, it feels like this was just a forced thing. It didn't feel like the natural next step in this universe, where that's where I think they went wrong here, and that's where I want to see them pivot after these spin-offs, which most likely will be at the end of 2026, next year, right, for these spin-offs and for this kind of mini era of The Walking Dead. That's where I want to see. I want to see the logical next step for Daryl. And again, if that means another spin-off for Daryl to see where he is next, okay, right? Like, I'd be willing to entertain that. Doesn't mean another show for Negan. Okay, if it logically makes sense as a next step and it's something that we're really interested in, okay. But if it also is the case that it doesn't really make sense logically to see Daryl again or to see, Meg and Negan again, at least in the short term, well, then don't do that. Let's do something else, right? Let's do something else. So anyways, that's just my thought then on this kind of era post-original series of these spin-offs, and where we will go next, where I want to see this go next for the Walking Dead universe, because, I'm still invested in it, right? These spin-offs have kind of turned me off recently with the last 2 seasons of Daryl Dixon and Dead City, respectively. But I'm still invested enough that I would definitely check out something that sounds intriguing, that sounds exciting, and I think there's still a lot of fans that are like me that think that way. So anyways, love to hear your guys' thoughts, right, on all of this stuff. Daryl Dixon ending with season 4, what this means for this kind of era post the original series, and what we're going to see next, with these shows and with the universe, and what's going to happen.